All right, I'm going to review a lesson in the Smart Exchange. You can pull it up with the Smart Technology software on your school computers or on your computers at home if you have it downloaded. I have it downloaded, but it's not cooperating with me. So I am going to review this lesson in the Smart Notebook Express, and if you click on it, it opens the presentation up. And there are limitations. You can't do a full screen presentation, and you can't do any editing or anything like that. It says you can, but you can't. Fractions and decimals are very important to 7th through 9th grade, really, curriculum. RTI has said that we have to go over computation with an emphasis on fractions, decimals, and percents for 15 minutes out of your regular scheduled math content teaching. So this is one way in which you could help fulfill that requirement. So let's start going through it. The first page, it gives you your lesson objectives and the teacher instructions for going through this. If it comes up, I'll show you. The objective, it says that you're writing fractions as decimals, and it's not going to come up, so we'll skip it. And then it gives you directions for how to use the hints and things like that. So here's the next, and it begins. I've already clicked on the hint, so it's opened it up. You've got the hint saying that all fractions are numbers between 0 and 1. So that's kind of where you get into that abstract thinking too, that really there's numbers between 0 and 1? Yes, there are. So these are manipulative pieces. You can break it down and you can see. But the important thing is to remember we're changing these fractions to decimals. So the hint they give you here, and it depends on the teacher, the denominator, using a common denominator of 10. 5 is really easy to turn into an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 10. So in this case, then you would need to teach that 2/10 and 6/10, well, the decimal would be 0.2 or 0.6. Anything over 10, that's how you do it. So there's that hint. The instructions in this case don't work for the Smart Express. They only work for this real software. But if you clicked in these boxes, you would get the answers that appear. The next slide is very similar, and actually I would put this one before the last, but I couldn't figure out how to do that in this type of presentation. But I would do 1/4 before I did 1/5, because 1/4 is something they deal with every day, our students do. They go to the vending machine, they have to pay $1.50 maybe in all quarters. Quarters, 25 cents. If you have 1/4, that's 25 cents, or 0.25 if they think about writing it in as money. $1.25 would be 1.25. Again, it's between 0 and 1, and in this case, as in the last one, they give you a number that's less than a half and a number that's greater than a half. So in this case, you've got 1/4, which is 0.25, is less than 1/2, which is right here, and then 3/4 is greater than a half. This is your hint, the number line, and then if you pull this hint out, they actually convert these to a percent, and this is where, to a fraction with a denominator of 100 that's equivalent to your original fraction, which is where I would bring in the conversation of percents, but it depends on the teacher. If you do calendar math, it's something that you're going to get into every day, talking about percents and the day over 100, 1 over 100, that's 1%. So it could be very helpful. I've already played around with this a little bit, but what they are going to do is order these fractions from least to greatest. Now, this is going to require strategy and problem solving, because they have to first convert all of these to decimals, and then they have to put them in order. This can be a collaborative thing with your kids while you're going around and checking their homework or checking their agenda, whatever you do in your classroom. Have the kids do this. Don't try to lead this. I think you would hear a lot of really good conversation if you saw them reasoning through, well, why does 4/5 go there and not out here? The next page is a solution page. If you had each of them do it individually first and then collaborate together, like a think, pair, share kind of strategy, then they could do a reflection once they have their answers. Well, who changed your thinking and why did they change your thinking on why 7/10 went here and not here? What strategy did you use? Did it work? Is it going to work every time? Have them think through, get that metacognition going. The next slide is how to convert 2/3 to a decimal. And there's supposed to be a slide up here. Let's pull it up. I would teach my students the benchmark of 1/3. So 1/3 is 0.3 repeating, or 33.3%, or 0.33333. And therefore, if 1/3 is 0.3 repeating, then 2/3 is 0.6 repeating. They have you pull down the hint and divide the numerator by the denominator to get the decimal. If you want to do this with mental math and you want your students to really become strong in that, you should not be doing any dividing. But that's, again, up to the teacher. The next slide is really awesome because in our new standards, especially in Kentucky, they're asking students to become proficient at modeling mathematics or modeling with mathematics. And so this is a good way for them to discuss with one another, what are you seeing when you see 4/10? What are you seeing when you see half? A lot of students, you would be surprised, don't know that 0.5 is 1/2. So if they know that you're looking at 1/2 of something, this really gets them into thinking about what they're actually saying. 0.5 is 1/2, 1/2 is 1/2 of something. So here's a good way to model it. So they would drag this up. Again, I would do this student-led, and they can check it on the next slide. Again, I would have them do a reflection, some kind of written explanation or verbal explanation as to the thought process that went into this. Did they work with somebody? How did that somebody change their mind about why this one didn't go way up here and why it went here instead? Something like that. Very important to model with math. And here we get into it again with adding fractions because, sorry for not resetting this, if you use the hint, you start with pieces that are not the same. If you looked at that, they're not the same. So you break it into a common multiple of 4 and 3. So you can get that common denominator so that you can add the same pieces. Students might not know at this point that you can't add 1/4 and 1/3, that you have to have a common denominator. They might not remember that from, I don't know what grade they do it in, but they might not remember it from elementary school and middle school. Here's your answer. Again, they would need to be able to convert 1/4 to a decimal and 1/3 to a decimal. I would not have them do division in my classroom. I would do mental math. I think it's very, very important as they start getting into testing at higher levels. The next two get rid of the pictures and they just give you the computation. Again, with very basic benchmarks, 1/4 they should know is 0.25, and 1/5 they might not know, but they know that they can convert this to an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 10 like we did at the very beginning of this. So they give you an answer. Also, I think with the actual Smart software presentation, if you click on the boxes, it'll give you the answers, which is very helpful. Students would like to click on that, definitely. And then the next problem does the same thing. You've got 7/10 and then you've got 3/5, which you can convert to an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 10. And they can easily add two fractions with denominators of 10. This would be beneficial as a warm-up. It would be beneficial to do every day and have the students time each other. Can you do it faster every day? It might get exciting. Again, it helps you fulfill that requirement with RTI that you have to go over fractions, decimals, and percents. Again, bring in that conversation of percents if you're using this. You can plug in different numbers as you do it every day. You can have students lead it. They can do it collaboratively. They can do it individually depending on how strong they're feeling. And there's many ways to solve every problem, and students need to know that. Some people might picture it. Some people might just do the math in their head, which is fine. Very cool presentation. You can definitely use it every day for those 15 minutes that we're required to do it.